So I'm going to start off by asking you a fairly basic question, which is essentially, what is your specific title here at Rideau Hall?
Well, I kind of collect titles. So I'm the herald chancellor, I'm the deputy to the governor general, I'm the secretary general of the Order of Canada, but basically I'm the secretary to the governor general.
And what does that mean on a day-to-day basis? Does anyone give you any respect for all those titles?
I sometimes say that it's essentially trying to keep up. But I lead a great team here, and it's a team that's in three big, broad areas. One is all of the Canadian honours system, from the Caring Canadian Award to the Order of Canada and to military medals. That's about a third. And there's another third which is concentrated here at Rideau Hall and La Citadelle, and that's the 150 so events a year and the 150,000 Canadians who come to visit and all of the activity of the household itself. And then another third is everything that's outside, all the communications, all the international trips, the connecting Canadians across the country. That's another third that we do, and we did about 500 of those events in the last year.
How did you end up in this type of a position?
Entirely by accident.
Honestly?
Honestly, yes. I had worked at the Treasury Board when Wayne Waters, who was the clerk, was secretary of the Treasury Board, and it was a really good work experience. And then I went off and I was running the Afghanistan Task Force focus on development in Afghanistan. And then I went from there off to Canadian Heritage for a little bit, and then Wayne Waters phoned me up one day and said, "Would you mind sitting down with the Governor General?" And after 5 minutes I said, "Where do I sign up?"
What made you want to sign up?
The uniqueness of the institution, but it was the specialness of the person. So the Governor General just felt to me like he embodied the kind of values that we hold dear and the kind of aspirations. He talked to me about a smart and caring country and what he wanted to do as part of his tenure as Governor General. And I just was listening to him and I went, I'd like to be part of that.
You described a little bit earlier a responsibility, a set of responsibilities that is pretty comprehensive. You do a lot of things. How do you manage to balance all of those different responsibilities? You have there's a large staff here at Rideau Hall, but that's still a pretty busy schedule.
Well, it's a busy schedule because we have a busy Governor General and we have a busy spouse of a Governor General as well. So they did 750 events last year, and they're up to 28 countries around the world that they've visited. So there are a lot of things that are happening there. And so we have people who have been here. One person's grandfather worked here. Another person has been working, I think, for 49 years in a row here. So we have people who have got great experience at doing sometimes very specialized things. Our people in the kitchen are marvelous. They don't want to do anything else because they're masters in their domain. And the same goes with, throughout the whole of Rideau Hall and La Citadelle. And so by working together, we get a lot done and we can support their excellencies.
Talk to me about assuming this position. Did you speak with other people who had previously held this role before you arrived here at Rideau Hall?
Yes, as many people, as many persons as I could, and to realize that I'd never done this before and that I would have to do this, I would have to learn, and it was like peeling away layers of an onion. As I talked to people, they said, you need to know our sense of history and our democratic roots, how the monarchy works. You need to know a little bit about how this institution and the office holder is a little bit about the spirit of the country and how you work with that. And then you need to know things like what happens when the taps don't work, because this is a very old house, and how to fix it. So I got a little bit of all of that.
Did they describe a different experience for themselves than you have experienced here in the position? I mean, have the rules changed?
I think there's part of the strength of this institution is its continuity. Some things look the same as they would have been in 1867, but every period changes, and you go with the times. And so what would have been a focus of a Governor General 20 years ago is different than today. Technology works completely differently today. So some things will be very familiar, but other things will have been different. here, with this mandate in this present day, I think what is different is a lot more work internationally, a lot more work with technology, but at the core, it still is trying to connect, inspire, and honor Canadians.
How much of it changes depending on the Governor General and their personality and choices?
Yeah. The core roles are the same. You have a constitutional role, and that involves a number of things, but the principal one is you always want to have a Prime Minister that has the confidence of Parliament, and that there is a specific role of a Governor General in playing that. But then you have a role of representation internationally and representation in Canada through all of the embassies and high commissions coming here. You have a role as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, and that confers a number of ceremonial and other kinds of responsibilities. You have a role in the overall honors system, and that is the medals and the awards, some of them going back to 1873. And then lastly, you have this role of connecting Canadians together, of bringing Canadians together around dialogue of important issues. In the current mandate, you talk a lot about learning and innovation, about philanthropy and volunteerism, about families and children. Those are the kinds of themes that are being focused on now, and those will have changed from Governor General to Governor General throughout history.
Many Canadians are not particularly aware of the role of the Governor General. If you don't mind, I'd ask you to give us a brief sense of what that role is, what it has been historically, and whether that role remains the same now.
Good. Well, under our system of constitutional monarchy and following the Westminster parliamentary system, so the executive authority of the country flows through the sovereign and the sovereign's representative in Canada, the Governor General. And so that has a constitutional role, and so you'll see things like royal assent to legislation, agreement to a host of governor and council decisions that are taken by government over the course of a year. And so that constitutional role that flows from the sovereign having, from an apolitical and nonpartisan perspective, the executive authority of the country, that is the one role. The second role is in recognizing and supporting and promoting excellence in the country. And that is a whole series of distinctions, some of them part of a formal honors system, are medals, for example, and others awards like academic medals and things like the Grey Cup and the Stanley Cup, which flow from the awards going right back to some of our first Governors General to support excellence in sport or in art or in academia or in other domains.
Let's talk about Rideau Hall itself. What went through your mind the first day that you drove to work here or walked to work here, however you get to work here, knowing that you were about to embark on this new journey?
Well, you know what? I feel the same way as I did this morning.
Really?
Yeah. You never get over it. It feels so much a privilege, first of all, to be here. There's no other institution in this country like it, in a place that's truly remarkable. You know, this Rideau Hall used to be on the edge of town. It used to be far away from Parliament Hill. The road was terrible. You actually had to take a boat to go from Rideau Hall to Parliament Buildings because Sussex Drive was just a track. And now it's in the middle of the city, and it feels a bit like an oasis. And it has a little bit of an English country pastoral tradition to it. And then you see the totem here and the Inukshuk there and the Canadian coats of arms there, and you see all of the Canadian landscape and the Canadian plants that give this character something that's uniquely ours. And then it kind of you just walk up towards Rideau Hall and you see this, and then you say, oh, this is our history, this is our identity, and it's also part of how we run ourselves as a democracy. So that kind of goes through your mind a little bit indirectly. So you always have this sense of privilege and a little bit of awe, and then you feel, boy, I think I have the best job in Canada.
You talk about that sense of history. Do you feel it when you're walking down the halls here as well?
Yes, and you see it in the big things and the small things. I have the privilege of living on the precinct of Rideau Hall, And every day I walk by the biggest tree on the property, and it was planted by Prince Arthur, the Duke of Connaught, in 1906 as a memorial to his being Governor General, and it's just towers over everything. And yet that was something that was established as a little sapling by a Governor General a way back. And so you come walking down the hallways here, and you see the big things and the little things. You see the sideboard table that we use at every single reception, and we've got, well over 100 a year here. That side table was built in 1604, and it's a working table. And it's as solid as could possibly be, and it will continue to working into its half millennium here. And you walk down, and you see a chandelier, and you say, well, that's a pretty nice chandelier. And you realize that it was given by Queen Elizabeth to Canada as a thank you for Canada's effort in Great Britain during the Second World War. And you realize that everything here has a story to tell at the same time. That's what every room is about. That's what our art is about. And that's the experience that we want to give to as many Canadians as possible as well.
And you deliberately cultivate that feeling here as well. You, as I understand it, pick the best of what is Canadian to showcase here in this residence as well.
Well, first of all, what we want is for everybody to know that it's their home. This is the home of the people of Canada. And so we want people to say, oh, I feel at home here. And we want to welcome them. And then we want to tell them stories about themselves. And we tell the stories through events. Some of them, like the Chio Teddy Bears Picnic, are about community events and about our sense of giving. Others are about the art on the wall that tells a story of our immigrant experience, or a group of 7 painting that connects Canadians to landscape. These are the kinds of stories that we want to be able to tell to people through everything that is here.
And you welcome visitors. Is this correct?
Oh yes. In fact, 12 months a year. And we were getting close to 150,000 visitors a year, and we can handle more. And we want to open both the grounds and the buildings to visitors. So we want people to come and have a picnic. And then we want people to come and walk through the rooms here and get the story of Canada at the same time.
What is it like, because you see them all the time and you work with them so directly. What is it like for their excellencies to want to welcome visitors, but yet it's still their home? How have you seen them be able to bridge that or to balance that?
Well, they're so warm and they're so welcoming, and for two such extraordinarily accomplished people, they're also very humble. And so they put people at ease all the time. And then you have to kind of balance your personal life and your professional life. So I know about their grandchildren. I know about how they get up and go on a bike ride. So you mix the kind of your personal lifestyle with what is going on, and they do so effortlessly. And we're very lucky for that. We've been very fortunate. And so you get a sense that this is not just an institution, it's also a household, and you'll get that feeling as soon as you walk in the door.
Do you have a favorite room in Rideau Hall? Is there a place that you like to go, or just a room that you admire the most?
Well, I like a lot of the rooms because each one is very different, and the ones that have fireplaces I do like a lot. When it's minus 20, you'll find me in the greenhouse. So I like that one too. But my favorite room is the tent room. And it's because it has a neat story to it. I used to be a tennis court, and so it was built for really active play. But at night, people would hang up canvas awnings to be able to turn it into places where you could have formal dinners. And so people have kept that motif, and it looks like the inside of a tent, but it has very bright colors. And I find that when people go in there, they just smile because they've never seen anything like it. I like the tent room a lot.
You must have heard some interesting stories about Rideau Hall, things that have happened to previous people who've worked here, things that have happened to previous governors general or their spouses or families. Are there stories in particular that you're allowed to repeat which help to illustrate how this is, excuse me, as much a home as it is a residence, or which are just interesting stories about Rideau Hall in general?
Yeah, what I think I like about Rideau Hall is that it has so many of our symbols as a country, our flags and badges and coats of arms and things that go back to the beginning of our country. But I like the things like I can see where you used to have a curling rink outside. Down in the basement, they used to have a bowling lane. We still have the oldest continuous skating rink in North America. And so you got a sense that this was a place for people to live, to work, and to play. You go out into the gardens and you look around, and they're just beautiful gardens. And so much of what's in the garden now is some of the more beautiful things from across the country. And so you've got a little bit of a kind of English sensibility to the garden, but then a lot of Canadian presence and identity at the same time. So all of those parts of Rideau Hall, they speak to Canadians who come here. The artwork speaks a lot to Canadians who come here, and we have a lot of First Nations art. And so of the many thousands of Canadians who come, many will look at First Nations art for the first time and go, that's my country. So there are stories everywhere, and these are the kinds of stories that we love.
What do you most want Canadians to know about Rideau Hall? If you could have them know one thing, what would it be?
That it's their home, that they're welcome, that we will always show you what our past is, but we'll always be proud of our present, and that present will continue to play itself out through the events and exhibitions and things that bring it and make it come alive every single day.
How have you seen the role of the Governor General change over the years? Because it must have changed quite significantly since Canada first had Governors General.
There are perhaps 3 or 4 phases in the evolution of Governors General. The beginnings of Confederation, very strong ties to the United Kingdom, certain executive functions that were undertaken by the Governors General here, but very strong sets of activities by the sovereign of the time. Round about the end of the Second World War, a lot of the responsibilities were devolved to Canada from the sovereign and to Governors General, and they now exercise many of the functions that were part of what the sovereign used to exercise. And so you'll find that is a second shift. A third shift is when you went from British Governors General, actually when you went from French Governors General, and 18 of them going right back to Samuel de Champlain, to English Governors General, to Canadian Governors General in 1952. And so you saw an evolution in the roles there. And now in modern days, still a continuity of our history and our traditions and our democracy. But Governors General do an awful lot more outreach now, including internationally. There are Governors General who never traveled on official business. And this Governor General has traveled to 28 different countries, with more to come. So there's been an evolution there. And then an evolution in the household. This used to be a working farm. There's a milking parlor that we still have to fix out there. And if you go in, you can still smell the cows decades later. So we had orchards and we had gardens, and we still have for the kitchen some gardens and whatever, but this was a big working farm. Now it is a place to receive a lot of Canadians, and so we do less cows and more picnics than before.
Great. Perfect. Anything else?
I think that should be the motto.
Yeah, less cows, more picnics. Oh, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge. Tell me about some of the more notable guests that you have had here at Rideau Hall.
Well, you'll start first and foremost with not a guest, but a homecoming, and that is Her Majesty, but also the royal family that have come here. And Rideau Hall is their home. The sitting room down the hall of the monk wing is where the Queen just loves to receive visitors, and you see her presence all over the place. Yusuf Karsh, one of those brilliant portraits of Her Majesty, just is in the hallway. And so the members of the royal family, I think, have always found that this has been their home. And there are some famous evenings like square dancing with Her Majesty here at Rideau Hall to give you a sense that this was not just a place to visit, this was a homecoming. But one of the more memorable visits was just recently with the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge. And they came here just after getting married, and I have to say it was electric. They met representatives of non-profit groups across the country, and they asked all brilliant questions, and everybody was talking about things that were, what is the possibility, what is the potential of the country, and the household found them so warm and so friendly and unassuming, and then they would walk out the front door and meet 3,000 of their closest friends, because everybody was curious to see how they did, and we were very proud to host them here.
Who else have you hosted here?
Well, on state visits, you have some of the people that are such strong historical figures around the world. So we've had presidents of the United States like John F. Kennedy. We've had world leaders like a Nelson Mandela. We've had the royal family from Japan. And I can tell you, when you talk about preparations for a state visit, the level of detail that you go to for a state visit from Japan is, you get down to millimeters, not meters, when you're detailing this. And so we've been blessed with people from all across the globe, and we now have 130 trees that have been planted by people from royal and state visits who've come here, and we've marked the occasion. And some of these trees now tower over Rideau Hall.
How is it determined whether someone will stay at Rideau Hall if they're here on a state visit? Is it natural to assume that they will stay at Rideau Hall, or what decides whether they stay here or not?
Yeah, we'll always make that invitation, and it really will depend on their schedule and sometimes the size of the delegation. So if they all want to be together, and Rideau Hall is not a huge hotel, by the way, it's an inn. So if they want to be all together, sometimes they're off-site, but we'll always invite them here, and many, if not most, stay because they get a sense of the history of the place at the same time.